How's the Christmas prep going? It's great, isn't it? You'll never believe it, I'm done. Yeah. We're done. We're good. In fact, I'm so done with Christmas prep. I thought, what should I spend my time doing this week? And I thought, I know, let's have a timeline of Christmas. So I put one up. And it starts over here with like 3 days to go. Oh, sorry, let's have a timeline about Christmas. And you go, ooh, excellent. And it starts here with Christmas 2024, and it runs all the way over to where Jeff is over there, across the back there. We're about Christmas Day is around about there in the middle, and it comes all the way down here to around about, 2000 BC or so. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you. I just thought it'd be really interesting to do. Yes. Thank you. Okay, forget it then. Okay, I'll just do a boring talk instead, shall I? Okay, so to give you a kind of flavour of where you are in this kind of timeline, is anyone born before 1924? There's no one who's about 100 years old in here, is there? Okay. Which is pretty much representative of most of the world, isn't it? Yeah, but they're not, though, are they? Don't ruin it for me. I don't want to change this. So most of the world is probably below 100 years old. There's a few outliers. So this is our time here. This is the amount of time we've spent with Christmas, celebrating Christmas. I've done about 50 so years of celebrating Christmas. A few of you have done a lot less, haven't you? Yes. Woody's only done a tiny fraction. He's on his third one. Dexter, you're on about 15, aren't you? Yeah. And Bob, how many have you done? Christmases. How many you celebrated? 92. Wow. And if you go further back, I just threw some extra things in just to give us some context. 1500, that's when the first English translation of the Bible was made. 500 years ago. Before then, we had it in kind of Latin, which meant you had to go to church to listen to a priest to tell you all the story. That point there opened up the Bible for all of us. So we didn't have to listen to the priest. We had the information. We could make our own judgments and things like that. I'm not criticizing the priest at the moment, okay? That's not the point of this. I'm just saying that is a key date. A key date. Another key date in the Christian sort of calendar is down here where Jeff is, 380 or so. That's when Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire. Yeah. And then it never stopped after that, really. And around that sort of time, 380, just before then, 280 or so, St. Nicholas was born. The inspiration for... Okay. Just after that, around about 350 or so, somewhere around there, was the first time that we got a recorded kind of information that people started celebrating Christmas as a service. So it's been going quite a long time, hasn't it? But I want to focus on here, just here for a minute, because this is very familiar territory to us all. Christmas Day, AD 1, yes? The first Christmas. You know the story. It started a little bit beforehand, about 1 BC sort of thing, less than 1 BC, when the angel Gabriel came to Mary and said, you're going to have a baby. God loves you a lot, but you're going to have a baby. And that baby is going to be fantastic. The angel Gabriel actually laid out the whole story, more or less, to Mary on that day when he visited her. He told her pretty much everything she needed to know. Around about the same time, he went to Joseph. Well, he didn't, but an angel went to Joseph in a dream and kind of just laid out the basics for him. Didn't quite give him the whole lot. But he did say something really important. He said, what was it? He quoted Isaiah about the virgin having a baby, and it'd be God with us, Emmanuel. That verse, Quoted Isaiah, which Isaiah is over there, 700 years beforehand. Okay? We also know there was a census to get them into Bethlehem. That census that we read about this morning, that was there to get us into Bethlehem. And then on Christmas Day, it all kind of explodes into a light feast and all that sort of stuff. With the angels and the shepherds, the stable. Maybe there wasn't a stable, but he was laid in a manger. Where would you find a manger? In a stable, yeah. And it's bookended by these two. Oh, and the wise men as well. Forgot about the wise men coming. It's bookended by these two here. Zechariah gets a visit from the angel Gabriel and says, you're going to have a son as well, and you're going to call him John. And at the other end, there's that tragedy. When the Magi went to Herod, found out all they needed to know, and then Herod did something awful. He slaughtered the babies of Bethlehem, 2-year-olds. We don't often talk about those two bits for good reason, because we want to focus on the joy. But it happened. It happened. And I mention it today so I don't ruin your Christmas day. But it happened. So it got me thinking. Where can we go with this story? Because that is not all the story, is it? No. So I thought to myself, let's dive all the way back to here. Rachel, 1900 BC. Almost 2,000 years before then. What on earth has Rachel got to do with the Christmas story? Well, Genesis 35 actually says that when Rachel died in childbirth, giving birth to Benjamin, Jacob, her husband, buried her on the road to Bethlehem. So if you're thinking Bethlehem is quite a sort of new town or something like that, it's never really been mentioned, it goes all the way back 1900 years. Okay? But there's more. There's more to this. Because Rachel is also mentioned way back. I'm going to be exhausted by the end of this. To here, with the slaughter of the innocents. There's that verse about Rachel weeping for them. The cry in Ramah. Do you remember that verse? It comes from Jeremiah. Jeremiah, who is somewhere around 650 BC, saw some of the exile happening. And he prophesied that Ramah, where is a town just north of Jerusalem, about 5 miles, so Bethlehem's not far from it either, that when the Israelite captives were taken away by the Babylonians, that town of Ramah was a staging post before they got shipped off. And Jeremiah, who's called the weeping prophet, he cried about that. Come on in, it's okay, come on, it's okay. Come in. He cried about that. He cried about it. And he said that lovely verse, don't worry, come on in. He said that verse about Rachel weeping. Now, Rachel is seen in the Jewish sort of way. She is a matriarch. She was seen as a mother of the children of Jews. So when Jeremiah says she's weeping that these children will never come back again. They're gone forever. And Matthew picks up on that and reinterprets it for the slaughter of the innocents. It's connected. It's connected. Are you getting it at the moment? Yeah. Okay, let's jump. I mean, that just reminds us that Christmas is full of joy, but it is full of sadness and sorrow as well. Jump forward to 1400 BC. Roughly speaking, Moses is coming to the end of his life, but there's this other prophet, a non-Israelite prophet called Balaam. And he worked for or was asked by the king of Moab, a guy called Balak, to prophesy against or curse the Israelites who were coming his way. The problem is, Balaam said, I can only say what God wants me to say, which is fair enough. So he goes out and he starts trying to curse the Israelites coming their way, but he kept on blessing them. It's a hilarious story. There's a talking donkey in the middle of it all, but that's another part of it. And he blesses them, and one of his prophecies, I think it's the fifth one, is about a star, the Star of Jacob. The Star of Jacob. This is 1400 BC. When was the next time you heard about a star? 1400 years later, a lot of commentators think that Star of Jacob is referring to the Star of the Magi. Not everyone thinks that. Some people think actually it's talking about Jesus and his victory over everything. That's fine. But it could be that, it could be the other, it could be both of them. But it is there. It's in there, two stories connected. We jump forward, I don't know, what we got, 400 years ago. Naomi and Ruth. Naomi, what in the world have they got to do with the Christmas story, you're asking yourselves? Well, this is tenuous. I'll give you this. This is tenuous. But Naomi was born in Bethlehem again. It's still there. It's still connected, isn't it? She was born in Bethlehem. She had to leave Bethlehem along with her family, and she traveled away because there was a famine. Eventually, God brought them all back. When she came back, she actually brought back with her her daughter-in-law called Ruth. Now, they didn't really see eye to eye. Ruth was an immigrant, as far as she was concerned. Naomi didn't really want to sort of play around with her, as it were, so she tried to treat her from a distance. Ruth, on the other hand, was persistent. She kept being persistent, and eventually I think she won her way in the end. Why is that important in this story of Christmas? Well, they both settled back in Bethlehem. Ruth became the great-grandmother of David. David is the direct line to Jesus. From Jesus to David, through Naomi, through the patriarchs, all the way back to Jacob, Isaac, and Abraham, we have a direct link on the genealogies. From Abraham all the way through, because of Ruth, to Jesus. So it's connected. The dots all join up. David, we've kind of talked a little bit about, I think we can skip over him for a minute. Solomon. Goodness me, Solomon. Who's Solomon in the Bible story? He's a king, yeah. He is the son of... This is like a lecture, isn't it? He's the son of David. In 970 BC, so 1,000 years before Jesus was born, he gets coronated, made king. And in there, in the service, is a psalm called Psalm 72. Psalm 72, we think, was probably written by David. It might have even been written by Solomon. Either way, it's a psalm about David's wish for the kingdom under Solomon, that it will grow and be prosperous and so on. And in there, at verse 10 and 11, there is a verse which talks about kings from distant lands coming to worship at the foot of this new king. And they will bring gifts, tributes to him. What does that sound like? The wise men again. Goodness me, back over here, the wise men. And actually, we use that psalm. If this church was a decent high church, and we did an Epiphany service, we would use that psalm in that service, because it's on the Church of England's website. But we're not a decent high church, we're a decent low church, and we do our own thing. and always have done. But there you go, it's connected. It's all connected. Then we've got all these kind of prophets and things like that. We've got Isaiah. We've already touched on Isaiah with the virgin will give birth and that one. There's a lovely verse in Isaiah, 9:6. I'm going to have to check my notes at this point, it doesn't crop up. Where's my notes gone? Here we go. It doesn't crop up in the Gospels, but we always think it does, because it says this: "For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Out of greatness of his government and peace there will be no end." We use that every time. Who thought it was in the New Testament? Yeah, a few of us probably did. I keep looking. It's not. Why Luke and Matthew didn't use it, I don't know. But we always have it in their Christmas service. But it comes from the Old Testament. It comes from Isaiah. Squeezes in two words, which if you're not careful, you skip over. Any idea what those two words are? Tells us who Jesus is. Wonderful Counselor, Everlasting King, Mighty God. If you ever wondered about Jesus being God, it's there in Isaiah. He says it's a mighty God. Mighty God. Where am I? Yeah. Micah. He's kind of, where is he? He's kind of around 700 BC. Micah is the one we go to if we want to pinpoint where Jesus is born. Where did he say it was born? Bethlehem. Because he says, "You are least amongst all the tribes of Judah." Yeah, thank you, Janet. Thank you very much. You are wonderful. We could go on. I probably missed a few out. Oh, yes, Malachi. Forgot about Malachi. Up the top, the most difficult one to get in there. It's really high. Malachi brings us back to the time when the angel Gabriel visited Zechariah. Because it was his verse about a messenger crying in the wilderness and all that. Can you see how all this lot gets connected in? Did you already know all this? No. Have you learnt something? Yes. Good. Do you want me to stop? Because, no. More. I'm glad you said that. Because that ball of wool was 231 metres long. And we've only got about 50 or so. We've got all this lot to go. Now, I've got to get over here. I'm sorry about this. This ball of string represents everything that came after Abraham. The stuff in the Bible that we just can't attach a date to. We don't know. Some of it's myth. We don't know. So in there you've got Noah. You've got the great floods. You've got Tower of Babel. You've probably got dinosaurs in here. You've got exploding galaxies in here. You've got a Big Bang or two, I suspect. But you've got in here, Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve. What on earth have they got to do with the Christmas story? Well, Adam and Eve tells the story of the fall of man. Whether it's true or not, that's not important at the moment, because there's a bit in there where God says to the serpent, who we think is Satan, he says, "You will strike the heel of her son. And he will crush your head." Okay? And that is seen as another reference to Jesus being born, because it talks specifically about a son. But it also talks about the victory of Christ over evil. So it's connected right from day one, if you like. Actually, it's connected even before day one, because I've got another one to go. The Word. The Christmas story didn't start with creation. It started before creation. The Christmas story was there before creation. Jesus was there before creation. Jesus is the Word. He was part of the Spirit that created everything. And God knew when he created this lovely planet of ours with all these lovely people in there, it wasn't ever going to be good enough. It was always intended that there would be a first Christmas. There would always be a battle. And we have to be aware of that. Because although we think in terms of this being a lovely, fun, actually I think I'll put that there for a second, fun world that we live in, we actually live in a battle between good and evil, between light and dark. And God knew that. And this is my thinking. He could have said right at the start, in X amount of years, we're going to have Jesus born in Bethlehem, in a stable, all that. But he didn't do that. He dropped tiny seeds throughout history because he was at war. If you're at war with someone and you need to defeat them, you're not going to open up the plan to them all at once, are you? So he drops tiny seeds in there. And the only way that we can see those seeds is if we were there with God at the time, looking down on the whole history of the world, we would see how it all worked. Or after the event. After the event. You might be wondering why I put this up here. It's all in the Bible. It's all there for all of us to see and read. So we have Tyndale to thank for that, and everyone who came after them, making that translation that much better and easier for us to understand. But all these things are in the Bible. You can argue over the dates, you can argue over whether the interpretation is there quite right, but they are there. And the story of Christmas didn't start at 1 BC or 2 BC or 700 BC or 1400 or 1900 or even in that period of time when we have no dates. The story of Christmas started before time. Amen.